Ever since Splatoon 3 came out, I've been getting requests to make content similar to a series I made in Splatoon 2 about habits of players at each rank. There's how to get out of C rank, how to get out of B rank, all the way up. Those were very successful videos, especially considering they came out before the channel exploded at Splatoon 3's release, and they were no small part of the reason the channel grew as much as it did. Why then haven't I made an equivalent in Splatoon 3? The most immediate reason I haven't made the same series is that Splatoon 3's ranking system is worse for it in a lot of ways, and in explaining why, I've found data that might suggest it's even worse than I thought. My methodology in those videos was to start at the bottom ranks, record every match I played on the way up in each mode, and count errors players made until a steady pattern of player behavior emerged. Then I triaged the most common and most impactful mistakes to make into subsections of the video. This worked because in Splatoon 2, it really meant something to be, let's say, S+1 instead of S+9. There really were discrete patterns of both results and player behavior between the two. I'd never say that about Splatoon 3. There are more variables besides Glicko power driving matchmaking than there were in the past. There was a certain range of Glicko powers that were all but defined as A rank. Now, though, grinding up through Anarchy, while it does absolutely have a learning curve, it doesn't have as clear and gated a sense of progression as it used to. If you struggle in a particular mode, you can dodge that mode completely and get all the way to S+, unlocking X rank, without having to play it one time. This is a problem for more reasons than just that it makes people who complain about Clam Blitz happy, though that is itself a noteworthy downside. I've known these rankings were less useful for the task intuitively, just from my experience of playing through them and coaching others. As such, I decided to maybe try a similar format, but base it on Looty divisions instead. How to get out of Div 10, how to get out of Div 9, etc. It's not as well tailored to beginner players, but at least it's something, and most of the time when people are looking for educational content, they're starting it a little bit later on than just being absolute beginners. A lot of it they try to figure out themselves first. What struck me when I went to collect recordings from players at varying Looty divisions, though, was that they weren't that different from each other. I asked the people volunteering their VODs for a general idea of their team's X powers for comparison. I was expecting that, say, a Div 10 team might have players as low as A or S rank, very low X powers if they had them at all. Instead, one of them had higher X power peaks than me. This was reinforced by some data that Roa showed me. Roa is a journalism-minded community member who does a lot of interview content you should go check out, and they're also part of the team that puts together the Splatoon Community Census. Shoutouts also to Fisk, who works on that same group and is also part of the Stronghold Beginners Academy and some other stuff, for clarifying a few points about the statistical methods and the data collected. On the 2025 Community Census, 2 of the questions were about what Looty Division players had achieved if they participated, and what X power they'd reached if they had X rank unlocked. They then took anyone who answered both questions and made them into a point on this chart to see if there was a correlation between the two. First, let's start with what the heck we're looking at, because not everyone has seen box plots in school. You can skip to the next chapter on the scroll bar of the video if you're familiar with them and don't need the explanation, but I feel like this is worth going into. The X-axis is Looty Division, so we've got Division X, the highest division, on the left, and a Division 10, the lowest division, on the right. The Y-axis is X power, which I'll admit is a little bit of a mental flashbang to hear, but it's pretty self-explanatory once you get over the YX thing. Each point represents an individual person. If they appear darker in color, that's because multiple data points are overlapping on that same spot. The box is drawn around the middle 50% of the players in that division. The upper and lower whiskers show a range 1.5 times the height of the box. So these are points that are less representative of what you'd expect in that division, but still close enough not to be considered outliers. Individual circles like these are the outliers. These are points that are unusually placed compared to the rest of the division, and that we have algorithmically chosen to isolate from the graphical representation for that reason. The horizontal line through the middle of each box is the median for the dataset. and the line across all the boxes is a linear regression, that is, the best fitting straight line based on those medians. It's worth noting that this dataset is pretty small by statistical standards. It's not something you'd really want to draw super confident conclusions from. There are only 11 DivX players who responded, for example. That might not be a representative sample of the full population. Adding another 11 could maybe make it look a lot different. That is why you should all click the link in the description and go take the 2026 Splatoon community census, whether you have X rank or a Ludi division or not, so that we can get better data and I can make a cooler video than this next time. All the data that gets sent to analysts is anonymized. The data that I saw, I got raw data, but I have no idea who the respondents are, and most of it is multiple choice or inputting something like a number, so I can't see a way that anyone would ever be able to reverse engineer that it's you that responded to anything. Go do the thing. I can sit here and wait patiently because I'm really just a recording of a person on YouTube, and you can pause me, and it won't really hurt my feelings if you do so. So, go on, do the thing, click the link. Done? Okay, back to the stats. So, the linear regression clearly does go up by almost 1,000 points from Div 10 to Div X. That's not an insignificant gap, and it's something people often misunderstand about competitive Splatoon. The difference between 1700 X rank and 3500 X rank is bigger than the difference between a complete beginner and an S rank player. Hitting S rank might take a couple hundred hours, but you're almost certainly putting in multiple thousands of hours to get from 1700 to 3500. Still, it's really surprising how much overlap there is in spite of the general correlation. There are players at the top of Division 10 with powers higher than players at the bottom of Division X. Div X and Div 10 are not the same, no matter how underseeded unknown teams in the bottom divisions of Ludi may get sometimes. There are extensive tournament records showing that low-level teams, the lower divisions in Ludi, do not beat Div X teams. This reinforces something I've long believed, that while X-Power does correlate to increased success, it's not a test of every skill you need to get competitive tournament results. Looking at the recordings people sent in from one division to the next, I can see patterns emerging, what's improving, what's changing in their approaches to the game, but it's a lot more subtle and less consistent than you'd see in Splatoon 2 X-Rank. So it's probably better organized just by talking about individual patterns as the topics of whole videos. I might get back to that, but unfortunately, because of the patch, all the replays I had have since become unusable, so I'll have to either rely on footage I can find online, or ask all my sources to send me more stuff. And I'll have to do that quickly after a patch, during a time when I'll have the opportunity to do the work with them. It's too much video footage to just keep saved on my computer for all that time. Gigabytes don't grow on trees, you know? If you haven't gone and done the community census yet, don't worry, I'm not disappointed in you yet. You were clearly just saving it for later. Link is in the description, and you can click on it anytime between July 12th and July 26th, and I will still be undisappointed. Just don't cross the disappointment threshold, or Romeo will cast a fire spell and burn your crops. I keep telling him not to, but you know how cats are.